All right, good evening, everybody. Don't know how many viewers I'm going to get for this particular one. I don't know how long I'll be on either. This one might be kind of short. I haven't done any of these in a little while. Tom Rabbit has been posting quite a few short videos and tidbits of Darth Dawkins content for over the past week or so, and I've kind of been waiting to see something kind of stir up some interest. I was kind of curious. There is one video that if I've got time, I might get into it, but this one was one of the weirder ones. He's in kind of peak preachy Darth Dawkins mode here. So welcome to anybody joining. Yeah, that's right, AJ. You'll get all the viewers that matter. Lol. Hi, Maya. Yeah, anybody that's willing to anybody that's like waiting for dinner to finish. Let's see here. So the video, as in the description, this one was one from just earlier this week, I believe. Just yesterday, actually. And Daddy Smoke is actually somebody that I think I've talked to on Rascal's Castle's Discord channel. And I think this one might actually start with Rascal just before Rascal gets muted by Darth. Whatever Discord server they went and invaded, they all went in there to kind of like try their hand at arguing with the DD. And it didn't go that great. So, Jail Warren, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining my show. It reminds me, there was actually something I was going to ask you about an upcoming show, and as soon as I remember what it is, I'll bother you with it. Anyway, let me start playing this, and then we'll get right to this. As always, let me know if you can't hear this. If there's any volume problems going on, but here we go.
Epistemology, okay. Right? I already said that
Bye. Okay. Here we have a 40-year-old. We have a 40-year-old stuck on 14. Okay. So I warned him over and over and over again. Okay. It's sad that a 40-year-old man reasons like a child. It's sad indeed.
Agreed.
So, Darth.
Yeah, he's go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
You just did.
All right. So, if it's the case that everything depends and derives on the ultimate, that being God, right? Nothing is external or independent of the ultimate God?
That would be the Christian view.
Okay, so I just wonder, how is it the case that God is capable of knowing anything?
This is a pretty good question. And the thing that I like about this is that this is one of those things where you can kind of like ask a Christian, isn't your God just supremely neurotic? Like, if everything is dependent on it and everything just sort of exists inside, like whatever conforms to its mind, however they want to put it. But if everything is just this grab bag of stuff that God's planned and built and designed and has working in all the mysterious ways that only he can fathom, it's basically that he's just really self-involved. But anyway, it's tangential to Daddy Smoke's question. So let me rewind that before I derail it.
Is external or independent of the ultimate God?
That would be the Christian view.
Okay, so I just wonder, how is it the case that God is capable of knowing anything if there's nothing external to him that can justify any of his beliefs? If we take knowledge to be a justified true belief.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna use that canard, right? You got that from the Angstripe crew, okay? Okay. For obviously you haven't studied theology, have you? Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Have you studied any theology?
This is an interesting question, because you notice he's not asking him like, have you studied any philosophy? Like, he's going to start deriding philosophy pretty quick. But he wants to know what theology he's studied. I think once upon a time, I was going under a different username. I think he asked me a similar question. I was having a quick exchange with him, and I just asked him, sure, I've studied theology. For which religion? And he got all pissed off and flustered. And naturally, I was deceiving him.
In the Christian worldview, God is the first knower, because everything is what it is, because it starts in the mind of God,
But then it doesn't really mean anything to say it's the first knower. The first knower of what? It only knows itself. And then in that case, you're talking about something that's not even what we would call knowing something. It's simply self-aware. So, I mean, and if everything else just kind of derives from it, it's, you're almost making a lot of these words meaningless.
It's implemented in the plan of God. Okay? The reason why human beings need justification is because we are not sovereign, we're not the creator, we're not Lord, and we're not omniscient. Okay?
This is going to get a little touchy with him too, because he gets a little waffly about this. Remember that he frequently does this kind of stuff. Like, he'll appeal to a minimal kind of God, one that's just some kind of ultimate foundation, a kind of like, I wouldn't say a the kind of a Kalam cosmological one, because he wouldn't say it's just some cause, right? It's necessarily has to be the Christian God, but he gives these like kind of like, and I don't know how he threads this line where there's sufficient things about God, but then there's other necessary things about him. And in this particular case where he's going with Daddy Smoke, the fact that this God is sovereign and omniscient are necessary.
Okay. So you have been fed a bunch of sophistry by
Sophistry.
Philosophy wonks. Okay. You thought it was a good argument. It's not at all. Okay. It's called the principium cognoscentia. God is the source of all knowledge or beliefs that are true,
or beliefs that are true. Okay, well, where's the source for the false beliefs then? That's what I'd like to know. Like, is that like an island of misfit toys where that's just where the lies hang out? Like that. Sorry.
They start in the mind of God. Okay, so for example, God knows that I'm an agent because he made me an agent. He knows all states of affairs because everything is under his control. And
I find this kind of weird because I think he asks him later, like, is God an agent? Let me play forward and see if he does that.
Under his plan. Okay, so the mistake that you're making is you are trying to anthropomorphize God. Okay,
keep that in mind. Darth Dawkins is accusing Daddy Smoke of anthropomorphizing God.
You're trying to bring God down to a human level. Okay, since human beings do not dictate or have everything under their plan and control, and if human beings are not the prime interpreter, God is the first interpreter. We reinterpret, or I should say, we recapitulate the mind of God when we correctly understand the world around us. Okay, so do you understand? And if you don't understand, I'll be glad to re-explain it to you. But do you realize how you have been bamboozled by sophistry?
No, not.
It would be difficult for him to realize how he's been bamboozled by other kinds of sophistry when he just had to sit through that steaming spoonful of it. But I'll let Daddy Smoke give his response.
Well, so
then we're gonna have to go again. Human beings, when we talk about knowledge, has to be justified, is because we're not sovereign and we're not omniscient. God is sovereign over everything.
Also, there's another little thing that he's missing about this, right? Like his fascination with knowledge here, and this just occurred to me, is the idea that, well, when we have to justify knowledge because we don't know everything, we can't be certain, but God can be certain, and then by proxy we can be certain too. We can be certain right along with certain Jesus. Well, most certainly, right? But the problem with this is that the reason that we usually have to justify the things that we know is that we can lie to each other. There's always that part, right? There's the shit that we don't know for certain. There's stuff that we get wrong, and then there's the stuff that we deliberately misrepresent. And for whatever reason, I don't know if he gets, I watched this through once. I don't know if he actually gets into that aspect of things, but we'll see.
And he is omniscient. Okay. So what the person is trying.
And here's another problem too. If you use a word like omniscient to describe a God, you are kind of in a way talking about something. You're trying to sort of anthropomorphize that God. You're trying to talk about a power that you would define in relation to human abilities, and then you want to extrapolate it out and then attach it to this being. It's omniscient. It knows everything. That's not really getting to what Daddy Smoke presented. And then if this is like an Angstrike thing or whatever, it'd be interesting to hear like where Angstrike kind of pulled that from, and if he's explained that out. But So he knows everything. Yeah, but he made everything. So there's a difference here. Trying to say something like, does this being actually know anything in any sense of how we would use the word know? Like I know some things, other people I know some things, you viewers know some things, but they're external to us. And we know things about things like our own states of mind. We know how we feel, things like that. But they're different sets for different people. And in this case, everything built was built by God. God doesn't know it. All that stuff is God. So this idea of saying, like, I would almost kind of agree with Darth Dawkins on the idea, like, well, no, he doesn't have to justify his knowledge. Okay, that's fine. But then if you start trying to say, like, well, he's the font of all this stuff, and then you want to turn around and use something like the term omniscient, the wheels start falling off that wagon, because he doesn't really know anything at that point. This is almost like when they try to talk about, like, God having the ability to choose, or God being a causal agent. The way that Darth usually puts him forward, God couldn't have done anything other than what he planned. So God's not really causal so much as circumstantial. Like, he's the cause and the effect of everything that happens. So, I would agree with him that you can't anthropomorphize him, but he's doing that. And because he studied theology, I don't think he can help but do that.
Trying to do is trying to anthropomorphize God, okay, and literalize that. Okay, it's just a soph. Do you know what sophism is?
I know what sophism is, using fallacious reasoning to deceive people.
No, that's not what sophism is. Okay, you're close. Sophism is using cleverly sounding arguments that are in fact fallacious, but they have an air of sophistication to them, or they seem like they're intelligent when they're not coherent. So the reason why God knows everything is because
also Darth is kind of close with his too, but I mean, so I don't know if it really require that. Like, it can also be, a clever sounding argument that's designed to deceive. It sounds smart, but somebody's actually trying to, like, lead you around by the nose. So it's not that complicated, but there's other definitions of sophistry. Obviously the method, but because that's philosophical gobbledygook, Darth's not going to cut that any cred. So
he's the first knower, because everything is what it is because it starts in the mind of God.
Then he's not the first knower. The first knower presumes that there's a beginning to things that God knows. That doesn't make sense. So he's already starting to anthropomorphize them. He can't help it. All those things are part of God, or God's creation. So he already knew them before. He must have known them before they existed. He's not the first knower, right? He's still describing God in relation to me and you, to us. This is how we have to try to figure him out. Well, it'd almost be better if he tried to, like, work in something that was a little bit more mystical or a little bit more general, like try to stretch the imagination. Saying he's a first knower doesn't really make that doesn't make sense. That just sounds like he's the first person to ever become aware of things and the stuff around him. Well, all things and the stuff around him, according to Darth, it's entailed by how he's describing it. Those things are him.
What you are doing is you are misconceiving God. You are conceptualizing God as though God were just a superhuman. Okay.
As a lot of gods that's usually how God started. Most gods in ancient stories, that's sort of how they're described. And Jesus is a divine being, is sort of described as a man that can do all sorts of cool things that we can't, like healing the sick and raising the dead and walking on water and feeding the multitude with hardly any food. Those sound like superpowers,
right?
And
by the way.
So Bespoke Post, they just send you a cool box every month.
Yeah, I know. I'm cheap. One of these days, I'll spring for the big one.
Do you think people have beliefs without justification either? Because
let's go back a second.
By the way, do you think Do you think people have beliefs without justification either? Because if they do, then it's just arbitrary. The difference between belief and knowledge, more often than not, is just a matter of emphasis. So God has true beliefs because he is the one where everything starts in him.
Can't have a belief. God can't have a belief. That doesn't make sense. That just seems automatically contradictory. Like this thing is truth. Everything that comes out of it would have to be by definition true. So it doesn't have beliefs. Yeah, he does this too a couple of times. He slips up and he talks about God's justification. I've actually heard that from other Christians and stuff, like when they talk about certain things about morality with God. Well, God's justified in doing things. Like, no, you can't, if it doesn't follow that if this God is goodness or whatever, that he needs justification. You're talking about him like he's a person again. Like he's like, if he were ever dragged in front of a court, of course he's got perfect excuse. He could never be accused of doing something illegal because he's always got perfect justification. The justification doesn't apply to God, not the God that they're defining.
His mind in the plan of God. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
so
are you an atheist?
Can we go back on the horn we were on?
Are you an atheist?
Yep.
Yes, I'm an atheist. I want to respond.
Okay. Why was that so hard for you to answer?
Because we were on a previous.
Because one, he's already starting to get into the jag, and he automatically got triggered as soon as Daddy Smoke essentially asked him to focus. Like he wants to. Okay, let's stick with this. And Smoke is right. Like it wouldn't matter if this was a Christian that was debating him. Like other than the fact that he's an atheist, it just makes it easier for Darth to whip out the rhetorical flourish of binning him and saying, well, you don't have a standard to adhere to. So, which is actually code for you don't adhere to my standards, so you can fuck off. That's all Darth Dawkins has got.
This topic, and you were shifting.
No, well, yeah, you could just say, yes, I am. Listen, you've already seen me kick a couple of people out there because they're being jerks. You're getting close to getting kicked.
Oh, no. I mean, if I had to face a vicious beating in a bar for being naughty or getting kicked out of a Darth Dawkins Discord channel. Ooh, I love how this guy talks. Like, this is how smug and self-righteous and full of himself this dude is. Like, do you know how close you are to being denied my teaching and my presence? Like, dude, quit fapping in front of me. You're just weird.
Yeah.
Okay, Darth, can I please respond to what you just said?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so if we take knowledge to be a justified true belief, right? I see no reason to just special plead God out of that. So God would require.
It's not special pleading. Okay.
Yes, it is.
You are conflating when we speak.
I like that Darth doesn't even take into consideration the first part of what Daddy Smoke said. Like, if we're talking about knowledge as a justified true belief, if we're holding to that, and you basically excuse God from that, that is special pleading. Darth is just like, no, he's going to basically get into this thing. Well, no, it's not special pleading because it's God. No, it's special pleading because it's justified true belief. Like, if you want to turn around and define knowledge as something else, which I think Darth usually does. Darth goes with what I think he believes is theologically safe. Knowledge is that which comports to the mind or conforms to the mind of God. I think he's used both verbs. Okay, what the hell does that mean? If the thing made everything, right, including the imaginary things, like, I wonder if Darth Dawkins believes that the fact that J.R.R. Tolkien could create the Lord of the Rings, that all of that exists in the mind of God. All of it. Like, not just the fact that J.R.R. Tolkien is a creation of God, but all of J.R.R. Tolkien's creations are, by extension, a creation of God.
We speak of God, we speak analogically. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
What that means?
This is good.
We take with analogically, okay, as opposed to speaking univocally about God. When we speak about God, we take the things in the world that we know and we attribute it to God so that we can try to get a handle on who and what God is. But we could never speak about God and his attributes exhaustively. okay? Because
Yeah,
we would have to be omniscient. So when we do speak about God, we have to speak analogically, take things of the world, okay? So instead of saying knowledge, we could just simply say God's mental states.
Okay, so he said a lot there before he gets into the whole knowledge equals God's mental states, because that is fraught with problems. There's this issue where he's basically justifying, like, well, hey, look, we have limited knowledge, we're not omniscient, and if we're going to start talking about God or try to wrap our heads around some of his properties, we have to, discuss this analogically. Okay, but he just said you can't anthropomorphize God. So which one? It's probably going to end up happening that if you have to refer to God's properties or do anything like that, and you need to think it through analogically, you're going to compare it either to humans or to things humans interact with. Now, so he's sort of shifted a bit, but then he tries to say something about we can't apply this stuff univocally, right? So the idea that there's a definitive one meaning to this. He brings this up a couple of times. I'm going to play through this, and there's a point about this that I think is extremely cowardly from him. It has an implication that I don't know that he's actually touched on, although maybe he has. Maybe somebody's approached him with this. He's over 60 years old, and he's been doing this for at least 10 years. So,
okay. So all of God's mental states about the world are true. Why? It's because everything that is, can be, and cannot be starts in the mind and the plan of God. And that is how God knows it from a human perspective. So,
but that's not the same thing as knowing it, right? It's not even like the same way that you know a dream, right? Like, I mean, do the thoughts that God have, do they come unbidden to him? No. Does he decide how to do things? That's actually kind of a tough one. If you get into a discussion with Christians about if God chooses stuff, it'll go crazy.
So again, I'm going to remind you for a third time, you're simply repeating sophistry.
This is weird. So the definition of sophistry that Darth really didn't dig into is the idea that someone would use a clever argument that sounds like it could be true, but is designed to mislead a little bit. Now, neither Daddy or Darth used that particular definition of it, but that's one that's out there. So he's trying to tell this guy that, okay, Darth believes this is sophistry, so it means that it either sounds correct but is mistaken, or it sounds correct but it's meant to deceive. And as far as Darth's concerned, it might as well be all of them. If it's wrong, it might as well be a lie. And if you're wrong, you're a liar. Like, he equates those two things all the time because there's something like broken in him. But where was I going with that? I'm starting to lose my train of thought. If he thinks he's actually dealing with sophistry from Daddy Smoke, right? What doesn't make any sense, like, okay, this Daddy could be just bringing up, I shouldn't call him Daddy, Smoke is probably bringing up stuff that maybe he's not entirely, maybe he doesn't know everything about it, maybe he's not entirely correct about the terms, maybe he doesn't understand the full scope of the explanation. Darth always talks about, like, he has a handle on all these different avenues, like he can cut this guy off at any corner, but he really can't. He just labels what Smoke's argument is as sophistry, and then proceeds to dump a bunch of theological wankery onto him. And this is these notions. He's trying to tell this guy, don't anthropomorphize God, and then spends about 4 minutes anthropomorphizing God. Justifies it by saying, well, we have to talk about God analogically. Okay. Well, if we have to talk about God analogically, how is what Daddy Smoke is bringing up in terms of, how does God know things if we think knowledge is a justified true belief? Now, all of a sudden, this analogical mode of thinking about how God knows things or thinks or comprehends or whatever, now that's off the table. Like, Darth hasn't accused him of a category error at this point. But, he's probably minutes away from accusing Smoke of being a liar.
Okay, can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. So, are you saying that knowledge is not justified true belief for God?
Okay. We use human terms to describe things about God analogically, okay? Now, we cannot speak univocally about God. Univocally means We speak with him that can only mean one and only one thing, and it means to be exhaustive. We cannot speak exhaustively about God, so we have to speak analogically, okay?
So I want to put a challenge here, and maybe somebody can correct me on this. How is it then, if we cannot speak univocally about God in some kind of definitive term, right? How is it that there's two problems with this? How do you then say that there's a definite standard of morality, a definite good and evil? This breaks down a lot of what these guys are trying to do with pre-supp and transcendental arguments. They will frequently tell atheists that words aren't univocal, right? They're not, that they can be used in multiple different ways. But when it comes to a standard of morality, they believe they have one. But now Darth is here saying that we can't even talk about God's properties univocally. We can only approximate them using analogical thinking and reasoning. Okay, so this is just more super relativism coming from the Christian worldview. You just compare things to how you think God would handle them. And if you start thinking about, well, how would God deal with this kind of knowledge? And then Darth's telling you, well, that's God's concept of knowledge isn't the same, or his way of knowing things. It's beyond our comprehension. Okay, so you have no answers then. But to get to the point before I run off into a tangent, that's the part that I want to know. We can't speak of God univocally, but we can talk about good and evil univocally if we presume God.
We talk about God being merciful, God being just, being love, okay? All of these are analogs of what God is. So we can talk about God's mind, God's reason, God's beliefs, God's knowledge, okay? But you're making the sophist mistake in thinking that God has knowledge in the same way humans do. No, we all.
This is special pleading, though. If somebody's asking you how this being thinks and you say, well, it doesn't, and it does, and thinking's not what you think it is when it comes to a God, you can't provide an answer. So why start talking, right? But at the same time, if you use something like this to kind of blow off somebody's question, you're also kind of blowing up theology. Or who knows, maybe you're actually creating the best theology you can get. Theology can be pretty dumb. This lacks any explanatory power at all.
Only have knowledge because it is granted us to God through his revelatory actions. Okay? Do you understand that?
Can I respond?
We could not know anything were it not for God's revelatory actions, which encompasses all of creation. Those revelatory actions have to start in the mind of God. Okay?
But what do those mean if you're just talking analogically? What does revelation mean analogically? It's not univocal. So what are we talking about? And when you're talking about, okay, all these things, that revelation starts in the mind of God, how does an eternal being have a thought occur to it in time? It's an atemporal being that is omniscient, meaning it knows everything, has known everything, will know everything. It's tenseless. So again, the description that Darth Dawkins is trying to give here, this little explainer, is already annihilating itself.
Okay. So
Okay,
nothing. Listen carefully. In the Christian worldview, things that are, can be, and cannot be, all start in the mind of God.
Okay, the things that are, can be, and cannot be all start in the mind of God. Oh, okay. However, there's some real problems there. How they can't originate in any sense. It's an eternal being. So the idea that something, and this is a guy that believes not only that God instantiates the universe, but he sustains it with his power. So the notion that there are things that can be, cannot be, doesn't make sense. I think in his case, what he believes is can and cannot is simply what God does and does not allow. And then there's just the stuff that, happens to be. But I don't know that this guy actually believes. I think he actually told somebody that he believes that the past ceases to exist. So.
Do you understand that?
Yes. Can I respond?
Okay, so that is how God knows everything.
Can I respond?
No, Darth. Jesus, Darth. The reason that God would know everything based on the properties that you're describing is because he is everything. That's what's logically entailed from the crap that you're shoveling. It just is everything.
Sure.
Okay, so if knowledge is defined as a justified true belief,
listen to me. I'm about ready to kick you out of here, okay? Because you keep on repeating the same canard over there. All you're simply doing is playing a language game, okay? I already explained to you, hey, AI.
So Smoke is playing a language game with a man who just went on about how we can only explain the God of the Bible analogically, not univocally. Wow.
IA, why do you have an open mic?
Do you suffer from anxiety, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, or feeling overwhelmed and isolated?
You are.
Sometimes I resent Tom Rabbit's success because he's monetized. These damn ads pop up. Sure, I could probably get rid of them, but
repeating the same thing all over again. It is sophistry. Okay.
That's sophistry spelled SAHF. I almost spelt it that way in the title, but I was afraid nobody would know what I was talking about.
Already explained to you that we can only know something, okay, have a belief that is true, and there's a justificatory path. The justificatory path are the revelatory actions of God.
Got that? So he does now it seems like he is willing to play in the pool. He's willing to talk about knowledge being justified true belief, as long as the justificatory path is what did he say? Revelations, revelatory acts of himself. What does that mean?
Okay. Do you accept that? In the case that the Christian worldview is true,
But this is good. In the case that the Christian worldview is true, pull that back just a second, because this was what actually kind of like tweaked my interest with this video.
Of God. Okay. Do you accept that? In the case that the Christian worldview is true, the justificatory path are the revelatory actions of God.
If knowledge is only possible with revelation, how does God know?
Okay,
anything?
listen.
Okay, that was a good question, but this isn't it. But it is coming up. There is a good moment here.
Listen to me carefully. Listen to me. We're talking about human knowledge. Okay. Now, we have to, in order for us to know something the way God knows it, we have to recapitulate or think God's thoughts after him. Okay?
That doesn't follow. You couldn't know something like a God simply because your thoughts followed it. That simply does not follow, unless he's trying to appeal to some kind of mysticism, which I don't think he'd want to get into.
Now, so when we talk about a justified true belief, we're talking about a justificatory path. Okay, do you understand that part?
This is just torturous.
Not necessarily. I don't think justification needs to be a path.
Okay, well then justification would then just if there's not a justificatory path, then how would a belief be justified?
Well, it depends on what you mean by path. Like
a justification means that there's an actual linkage between the true belief and its actual state of affairs.
So I'm wondering if he's talking about that. I know that I exist because my parents had me, right? That's a justificatory link to the fact that I'm alive and here. Or if he's actually trying to say there's only one link that matters, and that's God. And he has made statements like that. I don't know if he realizes that's the argument that he's made, but he made an argument to somebody saying something like, the pen that I'm holding in my hand, if I let it go, I know it will fall to the ground because that's how God wants it to happen. Not because it's happened in the past. The past doesn't exist, but because God created and is sustaining the universe as is. So he has an idea of regularity, but regularity is essentially God making things just the way it wants. And it almost has like an ancient Near Eastern kind of a cosmological take on God, right? Everything is chaos except for the world that we live in, where God is like holding back the chaos and creating this weird little walled garden, and everything happens in it the way he wants it to. And there's some regularity there, but he can suspend that regularity whenever he wants. This is, very, very old stuff. I mean, Darth's 60 years old, going on 6,000 or 7,000.
So a justificatory path is another way of formulating the term justified and justified true belief. There's a justificatory path, but the justificatory path is a more specific rather than general. Okay. So,
which I would point out that specific doesn't matter. Ultimately, those don't matter, because you could actually, he said this, if you have all these facts ticking off, right? And these facts, it doesn't matter that their states of affairs are dependent on other things and their states of affairs, and you have a network of this stuff, it's going to terminate into some, it won't terminate at all. It'll just go on into infinity, and then that makes him nauseated, right? He can't deal with that. So it has to terminate in God. Well, if you're going to go that far, and I've seen him do this, you might as well just say that every fact, every single fact, every state of affair automatically, immediately terminates with God. The fact that it's sunny outside, God. The fact that your mom is your mom, God. The fact that your mom, and here's the weird thing, the fact that your mom is still your mom today, also God. Bananas.
So in order to actually know something, as opposed to have putative knowledge, do you know what the word putative means?
No.
Okay, it means attributed to be the case. Okay.
Okay.
So we can only actually possess knowledge if the belief is true, and that belief is the product of a justificatory path. Okay. If there is not an actual justificatory path, then we wouldn't have knowledge from a human perspective.
I'm trying to figure out what he's doing, because this path thing that he's bringing up sounds like it's a little bit special pleading, right? Like a justified true belief could be justified, as essentially, like, as far as proving something represents the state of affairs, right? Like it obtains in reality around us. What his path thing, I think he might be trying to like smuggle in, like it works because sure, you might have a little bit of inductive stuff going on there, but all that stuff just is grounded in God. And so therefore you've got something. Like I'm not sure if that's what he's doing, but it's sort of, it almost sounds like it.
Now, the reason why we know things is because God first knows them. Because
that doesn't make sense, because there's certain things that apparently we know that God can't know, right? Like there are people that know the pleasure, right? That due to whatever you want to call it, either maybe it's demonic influence, maybe it's the wiring in their brain or whatever, but they know the pleasure of taking another human life. Does God know that? He's omnibenevolent, right? I mean, but if he's morally perfect in some such way, it seems like, a morally perfect being would not, that wouldn't be something that they would know about or be inclined to care about or need to know about. But all this stuff is dependent on God. It stands to reason, based on what Darth's talking about, that if we know it, God knew it first. So the joys of genocide, God, murderous cults, the fact that there have been people that have enjoyed torturing and raping children to death, God knows that stuff. He has to. It's entailed by what Darth's talking about.
Because they start in the mind of God, and then it is implemented in the plan of God through his revelatory actions in creation. God's revelatory actions are not limited to, for example, him merely speaking audibly to Adam or Noah or Abraham.
No, he's absolutely right. It's not just God appearing in a burning bush or anything like that. It's the Holocaust. It's a genocide. It's a flood. It's a volcano that wipes out everybody. It's plagues, diseases, unchecked rage, developmental disorders, babies being born without brains, things like that. Those are all parts of the mind of God.
Or Moses. God's revelatory actions consist of things like you looking at the moon and seeing it shine
You taking a human life.
at night, looking at your fingernails.
Raping someone.
Everything that God creates.
Want a lawn that looks like this, but your lawn looks a little bit more like this? Then you should click right here and check out
True green.
We come into conscious awareness.
You're killing me, man. I'm trying to talk about murder and rape. You're how to green up your yard.
From is a revelatory action of God. Okay, and it would not be all of the things that we come to know. Okay, we could not know them were they not a creative revelatory action of God.
Sin.
Could you have come to know in the Christian worldview?
I think this is it. Wind that back just a bit.
A creative revelatory action of God. Could you have come to know in the Christian worldview, assuming the Christian worldview for a moment, could you have come to know the moon was shining at night unless the moon shining at night started in the mind of God?
In the Christian worldview, no, God has to reveal it.
No, you're not understanding.
What?
In the Christian...
Anybody get that one? Daddy Smoke somehow got that question wrong, even though built into Darth Dawkins' question was the answer he wanted. And Daddy Smoke gave it to him. And Dawkins corrected him. It's really remarkable.
Could you have come to know the moon was shining at night unless the moon shining at night started in the mind of God?
In the Christian worldview, no, God has to reveal it.
No, you're not understanding.
What?
In the Christian worldview, you could only know at a given moment that the moon was shining because the moon shining starts in the mind of God and is executed in the plan of God.
Which is exactly how Smoke, I mean, not verbatim, but that's what he answered. It has to start with God. Why is Dawkins doing this? And by doing this, he's doubling down on it. The only reason that from the Christian worldview, you look up and you see the moon and it's shining, and the only reason that fact is a fact, that you have that knowledge, is because God willed it to be so. And then you are immediately crushed by a small meteorite. That was also in the mind of God. And a kid saw that from down the block and is traumatized forever. Or got his first erection and becomes a serial killer. You know, who knows?
Okay, you understand?
All of that's in the mind of God. Do you understand, Darth?
Not entirely. I just want to know what it means.
Okay,
for
all right,
God to know
listen to me. Do all things, all states of affairs exist because they are a product of God's creation?
in the Christian worldview?
Yeah, in the Christian worldview. Well, the answer is yes.
See, and this is the thing. He's been preaching at this Smoke guy for all this time with this shit, right? Well, isn't that how it works in the Christian worldview? Sure. What do I think of it? I think it's a basket of horse shit. Like, you haven't told me anything that, I mean, all that Darth has managed to do is basically, preach like, well, don't you understand? This is the Christian worldview. I know quite a few Christians, and I grew up with lots of other Christians. And I think that if anyone showed up and started talking like this, with the exception of a few kind of really weird types, I think most of them would have had an issue with his word choices and the logical entailments of where some of these explanations go. And also the fact that when he asks a question with the answer built in and someone gives him what he wants and he corrects them because that's how little he's paying attention to the person he's talking to, yeah, that's a sign. I mean, at this point, 60 years old, it sounds like you might be ready for a home, DB.
So this is how God knows everything. Everything that God makes outside of himself, he knows because it all starts in the mind of God to begin with.
Outside of himself, what does that mean for an omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent being? What can be outside of it? I really don't understand. And I know I'm speaking analogically. Well, you're fucking it up, Darth Dawkins. Try again. Use your words. Use better words. Try to keep this stuff consistent. Bet you can't.
Even including acts of agency. So you can stop with this sophistry about how does God have a justified true belief. This is just a sophist argument. I've explained to you now 4 times why it's...
That is, it's not. He hasn't explained that. He hasn't explained. The only thing that he's done is explain that from a Christian theological perspective. One of them. This isn't the only one, but from his Christian theological perspective, this challenge that God doesn't, the justified true belief doesn't apply to God. Anything that would try to combat that is quote unquote sophistry. He's just diving into his basket of theological stuff and breaking that out. He's not dealing with the actual claim. And he's not dealing, and this is a weird thing too, because Darth pretends to believe that he has the he understands what's wrong with atheists' line of thinking. This is where things go wrong. Also, Rascal had told me, and I think somebody else had jumped in, I think it was Zaji, two other guys from they're on Rascal's Discord server. They talked to him and they were kicked within minutes, right? Because they kept trying to push back on him. And I think Smoke has stayed on with him long enough for this, is because he's given some short kind of responses and then just sort of sat back and let Darth do all the talking. Like, I think Darth has spent most of his, I don't know how far he is into his 60s, but I think he spent most of his 60s years talking to himself. I think he might do this more than sleep.
Sophistry. So I suggest you drop it.
Darth, what does it mean?
I suggest you drop it. That's not a bad suggestion, because if you try to bring it up and you want to engage with somebody who claims to be philosophically savvy, and the only thing that he's going to do in this case is try to bulldoze you with theology, after he's concluded that, remember at the beginning, he asked Smoke if he studied theology. And Smoke was like, a little bit. And he's like, nah. So Dawkins already knows that this is, he's got him on the back foot in terms of like theological mumbo jumbo. So what has he done? Those last 20 minutes or so, shoveled a boatload of it at him. And now I suggest you stop bringing up actual philosophy, or you're just going to get more of my voodoo.
You mean to say that God knows something.
Okay. God knows something because God decides what his creation is going to be. In addition,
that assumes that decisions can be made by a being like God. Could God do something other than what he planned?
In addition to his exhaustive self-consciousness of himself.
Exactly. He has an exhaustive self-consciousness of himself. He is perfectly aware of everything because everything is a creation of his. So how did he decide a thing? If it's necessary for existence, right? Existence necessitates a God, right? Like a God must be there. But it also ends up being the case in Darth Dawkins' world that existence as it stands is necessary in the way that it exists because of that God. That entails that this God cannot make decisions. It's not causal anymore. It's a bundle of weird-ass properties that happen to create the existence that we're in. It's just you can't have something be a causal agent and also be the consequence of the things it's doing.
The other additional things that he believes that are true, that he knows them because he decides that they are the case.
No, he can't decide that they're the case. He built them that way. They have to be that way. If you believe that they could be otherwise, then you think that there's something independent of God. There's an alternative to the way it could have been. If there's an alternative to the way God made it, that means there's precisely that. Something extra, something other. And that cannot be the case. There's only God and what it wills into creation. So it does not decide things. Things are by necessity of God's design, not his choices, not his decisions. Darth Dawkins is doing exactly what he blamed Daddy Smoke of doing. He is anthropomorphizing an omni-being.
Yeah, that wasn't really a clear answer to my question.
Okay,
Okay,
listen. I'm going to tell you right now, you are on really thin ice, and you're not only
He's not talking to Smoke. He's talking to himself.
on the verge of being kicked, you're on the verge of being banned because you're being
Why would he be on the verge of being banned? I could see like he's getting like all of a sudden now he's getting ticked off. He's like, no, you're on the verge of getting kicked. You're on the verge of getting banned. Dede has not actually addressed Smoke's question with this. He's just shifted it to a theological position and then force-fed Smoke all that stuff. instead of dealing with it, and then simultaneously provided us, an outside audience, the ability to watch this and be like, not only does he not deal with what Smoke's talking about, the entailments of the theological horseshit that he's pushing towards him keep self-annihilating. They keep blowing up. So it's not just that he's not going to deal with Smoke's question. He's probably not capable of it. He's probably really not capable of wrestling with that because he's already contradicted his own stances. We have to talk about God analogically. We can't anthropomorphize him. Well, which one is it? You know, God knows everything because he's the first knower. Yeah, but he's not a temporal being, so first doesn't apply. You know, almost everything that Darth uses in order to describe this, and this is the problem with theology, God is always described in relationship to something else or to literally everything else. And that's its weakness.
And you're not only on the verge of being kicked, you're on the verge of being banned because you're being a sophist. Okay. Now, I explained to you that we say that God knows things is because all things that do come into existence and have to start in the mind of God first.
But they don't come into existence. This is a weird passive word choice, right? They don't come into existence. By Darth's definition, by Darth's descriptions, what actually happens here, it must be the case that they occurred because it's part of what God is. It's an ultimate foundation for all of reality. It is the source of all possibility and impossibility. It couldn't not have been this way. It can only be that way. It didn't come about. It is.
Okay, that's fine. Can we move to something new?
Sure. I'd like to know why you're an atheist.
Because I think Christianity is incoherent.
Okay, that doesn't get you to atheism. What you're now doing is baiting and switching. Atheism entails, okay, hey, enjoy.
I love this. He doesn't even give him the opportunity here. Like as soon as he hears a chuckle from Smoke, he's ready with the mute button and the ban hammer.
You're banned. Bye-bye. Okay, here we go. See? You see? They're just little trolls.
Now he's going to, he's going to generalize and essentialize about all atheists, and then maybe pity himself because there's, like Alexander, there's no more worlds left to conquer.
Asking for it.
Yeah, and people say I'm not patient.
No, you did.
He was asking. That's what Matt L.34 said. He was asking for it. Did you see what he was wearing? Daddy Smoke, you slut.
They are. You definitely are.
And you know what? He's a young, foolish young man because now he'll have to sneak back in here under a different account because that account he just got banned because he wanted to troll, and then laugh at my.
What was it? Troll. I thought it was sophistry, which you couldn't really demonstrate without engaging in your own sophistry, which blew up. This is like watching a simple child like play with a whoopee cushion. Just hold it against its chest, like blow it up and then just press it against and just keep giggling. Like this, this is endless entertainment. I'm actually might be referring to myself in that case, like watching Darth Dawkins, but also for Darth Dawkins, like he doesn't seem to tire of categorizing all of his opponents in the same way. And instead of actually dealing with thoughts and wrestling with ideas, he does what you see a lot of these kind of like noxious types do, where it's just slogans, labels, and categories. And as soon as he can like fit you for a collar, he'll herd you off to the veal pen and then, put a nail in your skull. That's all this guy is not a thinker. He's not even a conversationalist. He's just a ghoul. So that wraps up his time with Daddy Smoke. And I don't know if Daddy Smoke's still watching, but if you are, thanks for showing up. I should open it up here a little bit. How long have we been going about? All right. I'll probably stop that screen. And then there was another one that had just popped up. Let me see. Yeah, the one that was just done, I think the most recent one was he accidentally, quote unquote, joins Canadian Catholics stream. Gets brought into a live stream. Matt Slick is on there from Carm. And then Canadian Catholic immediately wants to like sick Darth Dawkins on somebody. And then Darth Dawkins takes that opportunity to rip into Canadian Catholic for having been mean to him in the past. Yeah, it's quite depressing. But here's a good one. As childish as that one is, there was this one from a little while back. I'm going to skip ads. Damn Tom Rabbit and his monetized channel. It's not your fault, Tom Rabbit. I just envy your success. So yeah, let me share this one out and I'll talk about this one because I'm pretty sure one of the guys talking in this is Pogan. Not sure. Maybe it's just somebody with the same voice, but this one was called Darth Crashes Another Room and then threatens to mod rooms that aren't his. That's not entirely like that's sort of where the drama goes with it, but there's actually something that happens at the beginning that it happens to me. It happens to my brother quite a bit with some of the other YouTube Christians that we deal with when it comes to something kind of cultural or political. It's just, I'll just show it to you. It's a little bit of a traffic accident.
Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit.
For instance, Martin Luther King, as we now know, Martin Luther King was like a very, very like a socialist kind of.
And maybe somebody can point this out. I'm pretty sure that Fucklechuck sounds an awful lot like Pogan to me. Maybe that's another username, or maybe it's just a younger guy. And no, Phil Bunny. Oh, the guy who bans Darth isn't Pogan. I know him from someplace. Okay.
He was very left-leaning, kind of communist type. Well, the issue is that history books do not at all reflect that. They instead reflect the idea that he was more like pro-capitalist, when that's just bullshit, and we kind of all know that. Like,
that's an excellent example.
Yeah. Well,
2027 is coming. Does everybody know what year that's going to be?
So this guy brings up the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. is not really depicted accurately by most history texts and stuff, especially for younger people coming up, as being as left-wing as he is. And it's kind of true. It's not until you get into college and you realize, like, you know, how much J. Edgar Hoover hated his guts, and you know, the FBI had a systematic campaign targeting him, harassing him, even trying to get him to commit suicide. He was a lot more left-wing than than some even current texts are willing to concede. That's the only point that's made. Darth uses this as an example to come in here. You can practically hear the grin on his face. It's like the smile the Grinch gets, you know. And I'm not talking about at the end. I'm talking about when he's like, you know, planning to do some dirt. So he brings up, hey, guess what's coming 2027, guys? Anybody know? Listen to this.
2027. I'm gonna guess 2027. I'm gonna guess 2027 is what year it's going to be. It's going to be 2027.
No, it's going to be. That's the year that the Martin Luther King filing cabinets, plural, will no longer be sealed.
Isn't it also 2027?
2027. Okay. The King family knew that there was a wealth of damning information in the FBI files, so they sued, claiming that it was a part of his estate, which is ridiculous. But the judge presiding over the case didn't want it to be revealed, so he sealed it until 2027.
I think the
that's not what happened.
premise behind that is a bit poorly framed. I would argue against that.
What? Listen to me.
Okay,
hold on a second. I'm responding to what he just said.
No, but you're overspeaking. Let him express his point.
No, he just said something. I don't have the foggiest idea what he meant.
Darth, let him finish what he's saying.
Yeah, I have to finish the. No. What I was going to say is I don't have enough data at this exact moment to contest that point, but I feel like the argument.
You couldn't, because it's an absolute fact.
Okay.
It's an absolute fact, not just any fact, an absolute one. Of course, it's an absolute fact. It comes from Darth. Alex Ritchie writes, let me highlight this. So the MLK incident was fantastic, considering all those forks defended Didi against accusations of racism, and there's Didi building an obvious racist Mountain Bailey around the MLK files. Yeah. Yes, he does. The weird thing about this is I went and read up on this because I'd heard about this before. The whole point of doing this kind of thing, of bringing this up, and this actually is kind of weird to me. There was a little controversy back in 2019 when some Kennedy files were released, and they have some FBI transcripts or portions of an FBI transcript that allude to some nefarious stuff happening between MLK and another individual and I believe a woman, right? Like the allegation's ugly, right? It's the idea is that this guy is engaging in non-consensual sex with a woman. He's raping her, date raping her, or however you want to put it. He's raping her, and MLK Jr. is cheering him on. That's according to this FBI transcript. This came out in 2019, right? So it's been banging around for a while. Not surprisingly, right-wing news places picked this up. I kind of wonder if the Blaze did, because for a while, Glenn Beck had co-opted himself as being kind of like the second coming of MLK Jr. for a while. That was ridiculous. But anyway, they kind of ran with this, like, oh, see, your guys like they're not motivated by racism here. They're motivated by owning the commies. Yeah, it was just disgusting. And so he brings this up like this is how this whole thing worked. The lawsuit in question, the judge sealed it because the organization that it wasn't brought by the King family. It was brought forward by the group that started right around the time of towards the end of MLK Jr.'s ministry and movement kind of thing, just before he died. I'm blanking on the name. It's the S something, Southern Christian something, right? They filed a lawsuit for it, and they were petitioning to have some of the recordings from the FBI destroyed. And I believe the justification for it, and somebody should correct me if they know more about the case, I believe the justification for it was that the FBI, their allegation was the FBI had used evidence and things like that of because MLK Jr. was an adulterer, something of a philanderer. They'd used that information to try to drive a wedge between him and his wife, and to send letters basically telling MLK Jr. that things would be better for him if he just killed himself. He'd be doing everybody a favor. And so I think they were trying to get that information destroyed. The judge didn't do that. The judge sealed it. And I think that was in 77, I think, or 74. So anyway, so it's sealed up now. But Darth presents this like he's got a shiny rock he wants to show the kids in the yard.
But like, I don't have enough data at this exact moment. But
it's a historical fact.
I feel like if I could actually like take the time to research the topic, there is probably much more to it than you're leading on about.
No, sir. You know what? That was just a moronic response right there. What I just told you.
Right there. Yeah, a little bit of Jersey coming out of him. Either that or maybe it's still, years of consuming lead paint chips. But there's something weird. There's nothing moronic about what this guy said, right? He basically is saying, your statement seems like it's missing some key facts, and I'd have to get into it and then try to suss that out to maybe figure out. I have a feeling that you might be misrepresenting this in some ways. Of course, Darth's answer is, it's an absolute fact. Well, it wasn't an absolute fact. He refers to file cabinets that needed to be protected, and they need to be locked away, according to King's family, because of all the damning evidence therein.
Listen to me. I'm 60 years old. Okay, yeah. Martin Luther King was assassinated when I was a little boy. I've been following this stuff long before.
I was waiting for when I first heard this. I was waiting for him to say, like, I'm 60 years old. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. I know because I helped.
Before you were even born. It is a historical fact that in the 1970s, may I finish, please? It is an absolute, undisputable historical fact.
Yeah, repeating it 6 times.
Okay, and I'll just kill my mic while you're over talking me. I'd like to finish. You guys complain.
You guys are coming. Okay, so
yeah, I don't want to have to start server meeting people. Okay? I want to finish. Okay, good.
Don't come into my own room. Do you want to take this to?
I can server mute in any.
So now he's not getting his way, and everyone needs to shut up and listen to him preach. And it doesn't matter the topic, because now it's this, sort of like crap right-wing bullshit that he wants to get onto. Naturally, everybody needs to, hey, you know what? I'm 60 years old. Shit, so what? Like, there's no way that someone 60 years old and an atheist is going to get any respect from Darth Dawkins. And if he thinks all these people that he's talking to are trolls and young snot-nosed punks, as he likes to call them, why does he keep telling them how old he is? They all know that he's an old fuck. They know it. He won't let them forget.
Room I want, and the only way that you can avoid it is to ban me from the room.
You cannot do that, Darth. Darth, you're not able to moderate in someone's private room. This is a private room.
No, actually, I can. I'm trying to finish.
No, it's a private room.
It's a private room.
Can you let Darth finish what he's saying? Can you just speak one at a time? Just let him finish. All right, thank you. Be quiet. Sit down. Be quiet. Let me finish.
Darth,
Go on, Darth. It's your turn.
Darth left, you fucking moron.
Because you got server muted. Because it's my fucking room.
Oh, right.
Come on, bro.
That's
Okay,
Rich,
so
right?
can I speak now?
Hold on,
Can I speak?
Rich, this is your room?
That's correct.
Like whoever the Carpe Cat guy is, it's like, oh, we'll let Darth talk, and then they're like, you idiot, we got rid of him. And it's like, well, can I speak now? Like, I wouldn't let him. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. You did what Tom wouldn't do.
Friends with Rich Evans.
You did what Tom wouldn't do when he had a room, and you muted Darth.
Well, he came in here and he started, he sidelined the whole fucking conversation,
lose your
talking
mod,
over
bro.
people, and then when he started to stand on his fucking soapbox and try and say how much bigger he was. Oh, I just got a message from him calling me a piece of shit. I don't give a fuck with Darth Dawkins. No, I'm talking.
May I interject?
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah, you can think that.
Wait, why is it
we'll hash
fucked
it out
up?
in the ape gang. How's that sound?
Why is it fucked? Hold on. Why in what world is it fucked up for him to mute someone when they come in his room demanding a stable mod? No. It's his room. He can do what he wants in his room. It's not wrong. It's his room.
He made a good point. The person who objected to him didn't even say anything. All he said was like, I just feel like you're wrong. He didn't add anything.
No, he didn't. He said he had not enough
Wait, who's thinking for Darth?
And rather than listen to my response and my rebuttal to the idiocy of what he said about Martin Luther King, all right, another 18-year-old know-it-all fucktard.
Ooh, 18-year-old know-it-all fucktard. Here's the thing that I find interesting about that. They're not going to let me talk. After you snidely whiplashed your way into the conversation with a non sequitur of, well, oh yeah? Textbooks aren't getting MLK's depiction right. Well, just wait until 2027 when we find out that he's a commie, Nazi, gay pride sympathizing, serial cannibal rapist murderer. Like, you know, not that he is a rapist. He ritualistically kills cannibal rapists. This is so stupid. Like I just don't understand why they wouldn't give me the time of day. They wouldn't let me finish my thought. Like, your first contribution in the conversation was an aside that was designed to poison the well of a guy they were talking about, right? Was to talk about, like, well, in 2027, they're going to crack that thing open. If he's still alive, which at that point, he'll probably be on stroke the fourth if he keeps this shit up. It'll probably end up being like the unveiling of, like, you know, Al Capone's vault or something, you know, back in the 80s. This guy's exhausting.
Right? Then when I tried to correct him that what I stated about the King FBI files was an absolute historical fact and was beyond any dispute whatsoever, then the trolls and the fucking hecklers come out of
it. There was room to dispute it because of the way you were characterizing your quote unquote absolute fact, Darth. That was what that person was trying to nuance into your conversation after you dropped Trow and pushed a Duke out right there on the floor while everybody was watching you. Instead, you called that person a moron, right? Obviously, only a moron would try to put your sensationalist nonsense into perspective for everyone else.
The woodwork in another atheist ghetto.
Atheist ghetto?
Yeah, it's common and down there. It's where we never go down.
Yeah, this is why you see I try to go in these other rooms. You see, this is why people are pissed that I have the power to mute people, and the only reason why I have this ability, right, is for two reasons. One, because I draw a crowd, and number two, I requested it. Otherwise, I wouldn't participate on the server, right? And you see, this is what these fucktards. That's all they're left with doing is heckling and trolling. They are just like the Jacobins in the French Revolution. You disagree with them, they cut your head off. They heckle, they mock, they ridicule, they interrupt. Right. This is why I have.
He went in there and trolled them. Right now, part of what he said is a fact. It's true that there are files sealed on MLK. There's actually two. One's on the murder, and then there's one on a file dedicated to FBI surveillance over several years. They're sealed until 2027. We know we had a preview of them in 2019 because it's part of the file was connected to something that was released out of Canada, for files connected to JFK. That much is true. But to run off at the mouth and say that, no, the King family wanted them sealed because they're so damaging. That's not how that worked. At least not based on what I read, what I could find. They were sealed and they will be opened in 2027. But the fact that he's all gleeful about what else could be in there, this was already a controversy in 2019. The FBI stuff is already alleged, probably the worst part of it. It doesn't, the only thing worse than cheering on rape is actively raping. But that's the allegation that's going against them. Do they have any proof that that's happened? No. They only have an FBI transcript. And the reason that people are very suspicious about it, it's very dubious, because those are the kinds of allegations that the FBI would likely use against someone that they perceived as being a public enemy who also happened to be black. It's very easy to accuse them of being a rapist and then just letting people, assume he's guilty, and it's up to him to prove he's innocent, which is what Darth's doing. He's presuming that he's guilty, and he's waiting to see if the evidence proves him innocent. Because he's a creep.
Nothing but contempt for atheists on the internet. Okay? Relatively few of them are civil, nor do they exercise intelligence.
Darth Dawkins wouldn't recognize civility if it kicked him right between the legs. I realize that's kind of a weird... that's probably not the best metaphor to give for that, but seriously, like this is a 60-year-old who stays up late into the night yelling at kids.
See, people complain about how I behave myself, but you don't hear people pointing out of the notorious and chronic bad behavior that people shove my way. Okay?
Darth, what happened?
No, I just went into a...
Shoved my way. I just went into... That's what he's about to say. I just went into a room. Yeah, they forced themselves on you. What's Darth's... I was just there to figure out how to get away from there. Like, I wanted to have... I went in there to ask for directions to the bathroom, and they just pounced on me and started calling me a godbother and a Jesus freak. It was terrifying. Terrifying. There's just some streets on Discord you don't walk down at night alone.
Another new atheist ghetto, and they acted like complete assholes, and I objected, demanding that I should be able to finish without being overspoken, trying to make my point, and they muted me rather than mute the hecklers. See, this is what assholes they are.
Oh, that seems unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. No, basically, these ones on here are worse than the people on the stage. I don't know. I thought you were on the stage earlier, Darth. I don't know how that went. But...
No, this is...
That's a good place to stop this one and end this one something lighter. And this is why I probably forever refer to Darth Dawkins as the Discord Christian Discord community's Elmer Fudd, because he just got treated to a troll firing squad. Hang on, ad. Yeah, that Not a Fox guy is kind of a jerk. I've seen him give some defenses to Darth, and just heard him once trying to say that like he thinks that Darth is basically like the best at arguing for Christianity. I'm like, yeah, the best if you want to turn Christianity into a biker club and exclude all but like a couple hundred members. Maybe that's what he wants. Yeah. Sorry, I should check my prejudices. All right, we'll wrap it up with this one. This one's short, and there's some good ones on here.
Welcome to the room, Ro. Are you an atheist or a theist?
I am a Muslim. Yeah, I just want to tell you, shut up. You're just spitting.
All right, remove this. Okay, there you go.
What? Okay, apologize.
Okay, we're not going to, we'll move on. Just remove them, okay? Okay, we'll go to the next person. How did you determine that all facts exist independently from God?
Well, your grandma's dirty fuck.
You see, this is what they're left with, folks, okay? This is how bankrupt atheists are. Boss baby, God does not exist because?
Well, God doesn't exist because...
I'm waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I created him.
Okay, bye-bye, Mr. Caldwater. Okay, let's see. Boss baby, God does not exist because?
I created him.
Okay, you're removed. Okay, I had the wrong person there.
Brought him in twice.
God does not exist because?
Because your parents are brother and sister.
Okay. What does that mean? You got about two...
What does that mean? What do you think it means? I'm over 60 years old. Then you know what incest is, since you invented it.
Seconds.
Yeah, he doesn't exist because your parents are brother and sister.
All right.
My apologies. His parents invented it.
Okay, record, come on in. God does not exist because?
I believe that.
Okay, Rant, God does not exist because?
God does not exist because whenever I asked him to go on a date with me, he said no.
Right. I sure hope your parents don't spend any money on higher education. Pat, exclamation point. God does not exist because. Yeah. So
I can't think of a time in recent memory where I wanted to know what's underneath that beep.
You see, this is amazing. We have a stage for atheists to come in and to unpack and show how rationally atheism is defensible, and we can't get one atheist who has a brain defending atheism.
Plenty of these people have brains, but they're not willing to give you any, like, you're not going to accept an actual conversation with any charity, grace, wit, intelligence, or civility. This is what you get to reap after all this time. Like, you've been sowing this for a decade in social media. So enjoy, Darth.
Okay, Pug, God does not exist because.
Hi. Oh, yeah. Okay. Shit. No, I'm a little bit autistic, so I'm not really used to this type of thing.
God does not exist because.
Okay, chill out, Mr. Reddit. I'm fucking.
Orbital, go ahead. God does not exist because.
Do you have any?
Okay. Yeah, folks.
That guy just got muted because, like, they cut to his mic and he's just speaking in Arabic. Like, he's probably talking to somebody and, like, off to the side or something like that. And then he starts to ask a question and Darth cuts him off because he's obviously, quote unquote, foreign. Oh my God.
I guess you see the pattern. If you come in here and you don't have a couple of brain cells to rub together, if you're just going to be a jerk and argumentative, you're going to be removed.
When you rub brain cells together, I think you damage them. That might explain Darth Dawkins' condition.
From the stage like a lightning bolt, okay? So don't waste your time, okay? Lewis, come on in. God does not exist because?
Well, do you see God in the clouds?
All right, see, more teenage idiots, okay? This is why some tigers eat their youngs. Cinder, God does not exist because?
Well, I agree with Lewis. I really can't see him, so I really can't believe it,
Okay, well, unfortunately, that's actually a childish response because there are a number of things that you believe in about this world that you can't see, but you believe in, okay? You believe that all facts ultimately are independent of God. Can you see that?
Want to know what else I believe in? Yo, Mom.
Yeah, so, yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just.
I know it. See, this is what we're left with, just teenage punks.
This is all, yeah. This is all we're left. You have a bot that automatically censors people that can challenge you, and now you're sitting in here complaining that everyone that showed up here is showing up to troll you. This is what you deserve, man. And I wonder how many of these poor people ended up on his like permanent do not talk to forever list until they get a new, username.
Rungus, God does not exist because.
Hey man, how fucking old are you? Don't you got grandkids?
There we go. Go ahead, Tiger. God does not exist because.
There's like.
Okay. Pat, exclamation point. God does not exist because.
Because you're fuck. Shut the fuck up.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we need some intelligent atheists. People.
You can find them in the attack, whatever that thing is called that Tom was talking about, the attack dog mod or whatever, attack mod. If Darth wants a challenge, he could talk to Jack Angstrom. But he can't have a conversation anymore because all he does is just yell and holler at people on Discord.
What we really need is a ban hammer.
See.
Okay. Horse. God does not exist. Okay. All right. God does not exist.
Wait. I need to put on speaker.
All right. Johnny, come in. God does not exist.
You like pizza?
Dana, God does not exist because.
Because he created you and he wouldn't create.
Okay. Fluid Cat, come on now.
I wasn't gonna belabor with this one, but that one from just a little bit ago. Woo.
Come on in, Fortnite. God does not exist because.
Because God's at Alabama.
Okay. Yeah, this is what we have. We can't get one intelligent.
He created you and he wouldn't create.
Okay. Johnny, come in. God does not exist.
Yes.
You like pizza?
That's got to be my favorite one. Do you like pizza? Oh, great. Okay, so yeah, I'll wrap that one up there. Yeah, but poor Darth. Like that's all he's left with. So, and there was a couple of other ones, but I'll probably split my time up and get into. I'm gonna find out which one that was. I was gonna actually get into some conversation, into a little bit of that Discord exorcism thing. Started watching some of it, and that is disturbing. I need to finish watching. I made it about a third of the way through the second part. Hey, Red Fang, how's it going?
It's going. What's going on, man?
Not much.
That Exorcist one. That was just straight up weird.
Yeah. Oh, and if this is perfect. Daddy Smoke's coming in. Hello.
Smoke.
So guest of the night then, since your conversation with him was highlighted. So how'd that go? Was that your first? That wasn't your first exchange with Darth, was it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think we can hear you.
Yeah, so this wasn't my first rodeo with Darth, right? I've talked to him several times before that video. So he's he's aware of my alternate accounts because I'm on all of his lists at the end of the conversations I have. So I kind of so I had to make some alternate accounts to keep farming content off of Darth Dawkins.
Yeah, I saw that you actually did your own video maybe about a day ago. It's about 22 minutes long. You've got like a recording of him, like just muting people. I started watching a couple minutes of it. I haven't finished it yet.
Oh yeah, he banned some people for raising their hand on a stage as well. So there are people he just wouldn't let up, and then people, because they kept raising their hand, he just banned them.
Like an Old Testament God. Wow.
Yeah.
I raised my hand once on the Daddy Smoke account on Discord, and I got banned as well. So that's unfortunate.
I wish I knew this was going on. There's a really simple argument to fuck with Darth. It's not even one I normally use because I think it's too simple. Just say, because the way he defines God is the necessary thing. All you got to do is say that there is a possible world in which there are two gods, and then therefore a single deity is no longer a necessary being.
Wait, wouldn't he say that God institutes possibility, so it's actually God has made it impossible for there to be two deities?
Well, first you'd have to assume God exists, right? But there's a possible he can only do that because he assumes it's necessary.
Well, Darth isn't a stranger to begging the question, so.
Well, that's true.
But
as
the
long
Bible
as you
contradicts that because it mentions multiple gods.
Like as long as you assert there's a possible world in which there are two gods, he has to actually show that isn't the case. And there's no way to show that's the case unless he's just appealing to a definition.
Isn't that usually? I'm pretty sure that's what he would go for. Like
yeah. As you just have to point out, you're just making a definition and appealing to it. You're not actually showing any flaw in my logic. That's the only defense you need.
Yeah. Yeah, because what you're bringing up is unfalsifiable. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think Darth means like necessary in the modal logic sense, right? I don't even know what he means by necessary. Maybe just like.
Yeah, he gets kind of weird about that because like in a modal logic sense, is it necessary? I mean, if you say something's necessary, it has to be demonstrable.
Well, it has to exist in all possible worlds, right?
And that as well. But I think what he tries to get away with saying it's necessary in a transcendent way, but then he gets real wobbly about what transcendent means, or he'll start using metaphysical as an adjective in a way that starts to lose any kind of real definition.
Metaphysical mumbo jumbo.
Well, he'll use that on people, but then he'll appeal to metaphysics or something metaphysical. When he's trying to like ground as like a transcendental argument for God. even though I don't know that what he's doing is really a transcendental. Like, he actually did this, and it was something I was going to highlight. He tried to say that a transcendental argument for God is one in which you either have. I think he basically was kind of cribbing from Matt Slick. He was saying transcendental argument for God is one in which there's a true dichotomy. Either there is a God or there isn't. And I was like, wait, what? I don't know that that's. I mean, that's part of Matt Slick's transcendental argument for God. I don't know that that's the whole thing.
Does Darth use a variation of that argument?
I've heard him. I heard him use that as a way of kind of defining what he thought a transcendental argument was, and I thought that was really misleading. Like, that's not exactly what that is. Like, that's just sort of a component of like Matt Slick's apologetic, and other transcendental apologists have used something similar to that. But that's not the argument at its in total.
Wait. Are you telling me that Darth Dawkins and Max Slick and fucking any of those guys would mislead somebody? Come on.
Yeah, I know. I bought a car from
Daddy Smoke, did you use your argument, your transcendental or argument against transcendental against Darth, or no?
No, I haven't gotten to talk to Darth for any substantial period of time.
Well, that's the whole thing about Darth and the people of his ilk. Once you try to make a good point, they will immediately start talking over you.
Well, and I mean, at this point, now he knows who you are, Daddy Smoke.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get back on with him.
Yeah. Do you think he recognized you?
I don't think.
I don't
maybe.
think. Yeah, it didn't.
He mentioned something about alternate accounts after he banned me.
He did, yeah. He said, he's going to have to make another account.
Oh, did he? Huh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I would have thought that the person that was hosting that stage event in Discord would have told those people, like, after tonight, you're all going to need new accounts, because he's going to ban you, and then he's going to miss you. He's not going to get the attention he craves, so you're going to have to come back, but in a different name.
You know what I don't get? Like, isn't a stage supposed to be like for the audience to ask the people on stage questions rather than the person on stage? Because the whole time Darth is just asking people who come on stage. I'm sorry, he's on stage and he's asking the audience questions. I was like, what's going on here? This is backwards how a stage is supposed to be.
Yeah. Like, you could just do that in your own channel.
Yeah, like, what was he doing? Like, the whole thing when he's like, all right, I'm going to bring somebody on. God does not exist because, like, why is that nobody said, like, you just gave the position to a person rather than letting them give their position.
Didn't he do that with a quote unquote AMA that he was supposed to be in? He just starts interrogating everybody.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a megalomaniac. You can't, like. I think he's terrified. I really believe that he's terrified of a situation that he doesn't control. So, like, if he's ever, like, he doesn't want to have to answer questions because he's afraid he might be presented with something that, like, he can't really, like, deal with his script with. So if he doesn't, like, if he's not prepared for something, he's not going to engage. He's going to be like, I'm not going to, he's got a phony sense of, like, superiority, I think.
Yeah.
So, Roscoe,
definitely.
To answer your question about, like, him forcing positions on people, you got to remember that Darth thinks that all non-Christian worldviews entail that people believe that God does not exist.
Yep, I know, it's bogus. Yeah, so, like, he's starting conversations with people from a dishonest premise, because he's saying basically that everybody that comes on is like, that's an atheist, is automatically lying and deceiving and it's suppressing belief, right? How do you have a conversation with a guy like that?
You don't.
Yeah, you basically don't. He just ends up talking at himself more than anything else.
Yeah, that's pretty much an interrogation.
Yeah, because somebody
I
said
don't
that
know
on
why
the
people
thing.
go in there and try and have a conversation with that guy. It's not
There
going
was
to
some
happen.
guy. Yeah, there was some guy who said that to him. Like, he was cutting everybody off. And the guy was like, "What? Why do you even have this stage? Why don't you just have a conversation with yourself?"
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, like the idea that he's not honest about the fact that he's doing the Bonson thing, where everybody, like you as an atheist or an agnostic, whatever you call yourself, you're borrowing from my worldview. What he wants to be able to do is turn around and tell you, like, if you're going to assert that there's a worldview other than mine, I'm going to show you how it's necessarily absurd. But they can't demonstrate that. They just do it by referring back to the definition. Like, there can only be this one worldview, and you have to acknowledge it. Otherwise, everything becomes insane. The challenge that I made to him, I'm like, okay, let's say that you're right, and there is only the one worldview, and it is yours. Why do I have? What does me acknowledging that is the worldview have anything to do with whether or not I can make intelligible sense of the world around me? Or I can be comprehended by anyone else in the world around me. That doesn't follow from what you're talking about. That's something that pre-suppers added on. Like Van Til, as far as I know, did not traffic in that nonsense. That came out of like Bonson and later.
Did you ever hear, like, it's an older video, but did you ever hear, like, what Darth, like, had a couple of debates with Floyd FT?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see how, like, Floyd said, like, invoked Bonson, like, saying, like, like, he gave a quote from Bonson saying, like, you must reason from your presuppositions. There is no other way. And, like, Darth got really pissed off that he used Bonson, and he was like, well, how do you know Bonson actually existed? And how do you know what you read actually came from Bonson? He, like, literally went to that argument.
Oh my God.
Like, this is not an honest person. He literally was like, oh yeah, well, how do you, what you know was actually from Greg Bonson? That's what he said.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, and that's the problem too, because that gets back to the psychological foundation from where the argument comes from, is to assume that either the person that you're talking to, if they're not a Christian, they're not a believer, they're either blinkered, so they're either mistaken, deceived, or they are deceiving.
Yep.
It's one of those three things, and generally, most of these guys, I think, have a hard time separating that, because if they think that you're wrong, they're willing to. It's up to their individual patience level how long they're going to, how long they'll last. So it's only time will tell how long it takes them to shift from "I think you're mistaken" or "I think you're confused" to "you're fucking lying to me, you deceitful lying piece of shit." That almost inevitably happens.
Right away.
Yeah, Darth just gets there within a couple of hot seconds. But there are other apologists. You watch them in the scope of an hour and a half, a 2-hour discussion, and you can see them getting there. And then you see them do after shows and stuff, and they more or less. Sometimes they only imply it, but other times they're pretty obvious about it. Like, this person was deceitful, this person was lying to me, this person was just trying to butter up the audience, all this kind of shit. It's like it sounded like you started from the position that you thought that this person was deceived either by Satan or in their sin nature or whatever. And now you're making it entirely about your opponent being deceitful and trying to manipulate you and cheat you and being mean to you. Like, you started to personalize it. Anytime one of those ding-dongs tell me that, well, I hate the sin, not the sinner. I'm like, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. Speaking of other precepts, did you get to see Daddy Smoke's video with Matt Slick?
No.
Oh yeah, you should check it out. I think it's on Daddy Smoke. It's on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's an hour.
Yeah, it's longer, so it's like you can see Matt Slick is much more patient and much more charitable than Darth, but he does start getting angry at the end of it.
Can you post a link to your channel in the private chat?
In the private chat? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now Jefferson, I don't know if you saw, but now Matt has his own Discord server now too.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was I'm like, oh, good. Now, like, when we have the meeting of the presuppositional refutation proclamation squad, we can go and crash Matt Slick's server if we can't find Darth.
If you got an invite for that, can you send me one? Because I think I missed it.
I definitely will.
Yeah, post the link to your your Discord in the private chat there, Rascal. He has some good discussions in there sometimes.
Isn't my link already on your in your chat, Jefferson?
Hang on.
Are you talking about Matt Slick's server or Roskall's server?
Both, I guess. I thought Jefferson had my link in for, but I might not. 'Cause Jefferson does have his own channel on my server, so.
Well, I went in there one time, and Rascal and a couple of people were debating a fucking Holocaust denier.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. It's fucking
that was
funny.
He was on again a couple of nights ago. He came back.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he rage quit this time. Last time, like he was pretty good. Like he put up with like all of us ganging up on him for his craziness. But the one he was just on, he like rage quit after a while.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go, Jeff. Jeff is a good guy, and so is Jay. Even though they're fucking clones. They're fucking clones, man. Clones are evil.
I'm gonna put the one from Matt Slick in the chat.
It depends on the brand of clones.
Well, fair enough. You weren't part of the Bad Batch. Yeah,
we're from Jay and I were like Wayland Yutani clones, so that makes us by definition evil. So yeah.
Okay, I posted the Matt Slick Discord link in the chat. I put it in the private chat. Should I put it in the other chat or?
Hang on.
It's already in there. Your Discord's already in there. Jay put it in there.
Well, no, I'm talking about
fuck Matt Slick. Fuck Matt.
Well, I just curious if anybody want to go on there and talk to him.
I posted Daddy Smoke's YouTube channel link on there.
Okay.
It's in the live chat.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think Matt Slick he's also, I kind of find Matt Slick to be a little bit of a, like Daddy Smoke, when you were saying like basically at the end, all he did was, he was just, oh shit, did I get out of it?
No.
Oh, I thought I left it. At the end, he was just preaching to you, right?
Yeah, he was going on about, I think, like, Jesus resurrection. At least I remember something about Jesus. And fuck, I don't even remember how that was even relevant to the conversation.
That's usually how it goes.
Oh, I think we lost Serb. Well, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up a little bit because I've been on for a little over an hour and a half, and I want to eat dinner. So let's see. Yeah, I think I pretty much wrapped up everything I wanted to do. Anybody got any last thoughts or anything? Anything going
on? Not for me. Peace.
What are you eating for dinner, Jeff?
I've actually got a chicken and sweet potato stew. That we'll be having.
God damn you, man!
Yeah,
that sounds delicious.
It's kind of a, I don't know. It's kind of a cross between something from Japan and something from France. It's one of my own things. So.
Okay.
Yep, lots of vegetables, lots of chicken, lots of herbs and spices.
Sounds good. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'll be away this week. So like anybody who like on my server, the other people running the show. But so if you wanted, well, Jefferson, you have pretty much admin permissions on the server anyway, so you could run you could run your room if you want, even if I'm not around.
Okay. All right. Yeah, good to know. You're going to be taking up what? So you're going to be gone this weekend and all of next week?
I'll be gone. Yeah, I won't be back till Thursday.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Jeff's going to run his room like DD runs his room.
Yeah, you can do that if you want.
Just start muting everybody. Yeah, you come back and everybody like, how did all these people get banned? Like Jefferson.
Yeah.
Jeff did it. God damn it.
I mean, you're a pretty good guy. I would imagine that if you banned people, Jeff, they probably would have deserved it. You're not DD who just goes, these people don't agree with me, so they're banned.
Yeah, I'll ban people that try to do revenge porn, trolling, or are out and out racist. Those ones would get banned. So
racist, sexist, LGBTQ haters, homophobia, shit like that. Yeah, they get kicked.
Yeah, I forgot to mention
most Christians.
Yeah, there you go.
Easy now. Now there is a video that I'm going to be doing. A YouTube friend of mine, an acquaintance, sent me a link to a video to an Australian YouTuber Christian who has a reaction to the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus did a video 3-4 weeks ago They did this kind of satirical song, and it caused some people to just cake their pants with rage. And one of them is this Australian guy who does like a just about 10-minute reaction video to it, in which he basically like encapsulates everything wrong with modern Christianity, like evangelical Christianity's take on homosexuality and the LGBTQ community in general. Like it's almost a cliche. So I'm going to be doing a video with that. I'm going to be reaching out to my friend to do that. And then
Is that Jason?
No, it's not Jay. It's Nicola.
Oh, okay.
So I did ask him about it. He's down for doing that. So it might happen maybe this weekend or something like that. But
was the Christian Jason Izzard?
No.
Okay.
Much calmer. Nicola described him as a young, cogent Gavin.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He kind of looks like the guy the kid from Almost Famous, growing up. He kind of looks like that actor.
Okay.
But I shouldn't do that because that guy's a good actor, and this guy.
Wait,
this
was
guy's
that
just
Jared
kind of
Leto? Was that Jared Leto?
No. God, I'm blanking on his name. He was in that show. He was in The Exorcist or Outcast. Outcast. It was on a show too.
I have to go look it up. Yeah. I just want to.
Is his name Paul Dini? Isn't that his name, Paul Dini?
No, isn't Paul Dini an animator for the Batman show, the Batman cartoon?
No, he's going to be the new. I forget. Oh my god, Paul Dini. Did you ever see 12 Years a Slave?
Yeah.
Paul Dini was the guy that like wanted to hang the main character like towards the middle-ish of the movie.
Are you thinking of Paul Dano?
Paul Dano. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not him.
Patrick Fugit.
Patrick Fugit. Okay.
Patrick
yeah,
Fugit.
no, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, this Australian guy kind of looks like Patrick Fugit, but he does. But he sounds a little. He's Australian. He's not a Kiwi, but he does kind of sound a little bit like Gavin. But yeah, his take on the. I sent it to Jay. Jay's reaction of it was like, "Oh my god, these people are just missing the point entirely." It is hilarious. It's also tragic because the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus got an enormous amount of death threats and hate responses from it. So bad that the San Francisco police had to get involved to protect them. Yeah. So yeah, it's
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane, but. It'll be something interesting. It's just as goofy as something that Darth would get into, but it's a break from Darth.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm gonna let it go.
I don't even get a chance to talk to Darth. He just cuts me off right away. I think I get like 2 sentences in, and that was it. He was just like, "Click, you're gone."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Rex, did you want
to bother anymore?
If I had a TARDIS, I would go back to the theater release of Blazing Saddles and see how people walked out after the end of that movie, because that was fucking funny.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got. That's all I got.
Some Blazing Saddles nostalgia. Yeah, that movie was able to do things that we cannot do today. All right, guys, and everybody watching, thanks everybody for showing up. I will try to do a little bit more content, hopefully throughout the weekend. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Like or don't, it's up to you. I'm not doing this for money, so I only do this. For the praise.
For the fun of it.
and Darth Dawkins is my rhetorical punching bag. So good night, everybody.
Take care, Darth. Thank you.
Care.